Your first blush thoughts are what?
The best team won. They were the best team in college football. They played really well. I mean, you talk about their first 5 series against a really good defense, really well-coached team at Notre Dame. They scored 4 touchdowns. And I give Notre Dame a lot of credit because at one point it was 31-7. You know, they have the first crazy drive where it's 10 minutes and just grind it out with Riley Leonard, get on the board first. Then Ohio State just answers, and Ohio State's just so good on both sides of the ball. And it feels like Notre Dame is really getting blown out of the building. And for a lot of folks, I'm sure a lot of people at home, they're like, oh, yeah, I remember Notre Dame in a national title game back in the Brian Kelly Manti Te'o days when Alabama just destroyed them. Mm-hmm. And to Notre Dame's credit, they made a big play on defense when Ohio State was driving again, punched the ball out, got a fumble, and then got it interesting. You know, like that takes a lot for a team to go up and be that resilient, to keep fighting, keep battling. Credit to Marcus Freeman and them, and obviously it didn't go the way Notre Dame wanted it to end, but I thought it was, you know, it was a really, you know, if you're sitting there looking, you know, at the pictures of the guys on the sideline, I mean, I couldn't have been much more impressed because that's a team that they're without the best cover guy. Again, they play a lot of man, and Benjamin Morrison's been out for most of the season. They're without their best pass rusher, Riley Mills. And I know a lot of teams have injuries, and certainly Ohio State, they're without their center and their first round, probably talent left tackle. But Notre Dame, to see how far they've come, especially under Freeman, has been pretty impressive. And I thought, just, you know, we were around Ohio State a lot, especially this year.
Yes.
And
on Fox
a lot. And I think knowing Ryan Day for a long time, knowing Ryan Day's family for a lot, like that was my story. After the game was to talk to his wife and his kids and his father-in-law and people really close to him about what they've endured. Way more than, you know, in the story, his father-in-law, who Ryan's known since he was like 9, mm-hmm. from New Hampshire, is a legendary Division II basketball coach, was up for the Basketball Hall of Fame, just a wonderful man, great sense of humor. And he was like, you know, my daughter grew up as a daughter of a coach in a coaching family, but coaches, you got a lot of stress, and the mom usually has to, you know, run the household because, you know, the dad's all, you know, hours are crazy and travel is crazy and everything else. But this other stuff that they dealt with.
Like what? I know you wrote about it. Give it out. Pop
yeah,
it
I mean,
out there.
The threats that the family dealt with to need round-the-clock protection.
This is after the loss to Michigan?
This is after the loss to Michigan. Talking to Ryan Day's son, RJ, he's a really talented young quarterback. He's only a sophomore in high school. But talking to him, he was like, you know, school was really rough. He didn't go out much till after the Tennessee game. You got to remember, that's like 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like Tennessee happened the week later. They didn't play Tennessee for like 3 weeks after Michigan game. So, you know, I think that's really hard. They have 2 young, you know, RJ is the oldest, but then 2 younger girls, and they know what's going on. And I think that's, you know, mind-blowing in that regard. And I give a ton of credit to Nina Day. That's Ryan Day's wife, how she handled it. She was and she told me she was really worried because in this day and age, you got to take everything seriously, especially when it comes to things of that nature. And on top of this, the symbolism she pointed out to me, or the symmetry of this, the day the national title game was Monday, January 20th. Mm-hmm. It was also the anniversary of when Ryan Day is a little boy, he loses his father. His father dies by suicide. I mean, the gravity of all that is just remarkable. So, you know, from the human component, you had to be, even if you're a Michigan fan, I think you have to feel for
of course.
that family.
Well, the question I have then, not to turn this into a therapy mm-hmm. session, but what do we take away from this? What do you take away from the Ohio State fan base? And that, I'm not painting it as a one big brush, but that sounds like there's a lunatic fringe, which is exactly what Kirk Herbstreit said and got eviscerated by a lot of Buckeye fans for saying such a thing, because I'm sure he was well aware of what you're referring to right now at the time that came out of his mouth in the booth when Tennessee was being destroyed by Ohio State and starting to turn the page to eventual national championship. What's the takeaway here? That they, 4 games later, now it's all good? Like, is that...
Yeah,
Is that what we're saying now?
Somebody in there had kind of half kiddingly said, "I think we'll be okay for a couple of weeks." I don't have any concept of how small the percentage is of people who would go to that length. I think what you have to, sort out with this is there are people, and look, it's not just the fans. There are people in the national media with big voices who will sit there and say, "Oh, if he loses to them again, he should be fired. If he lost to Tennessee, he should be fired." The guy is now 70-10 all time as a coach, right? Jim Harbaugh lost a lot of games to Ohio State for a long time. He could not beat them.
Yes,
obviously he
Can't
remedied
confirm
that. Yeah, and so
yeah.
I think people can say, "Oh, they're making X amount of millions of dollars, and everything is justified in the pressure on that." But I think there's also some other parts of this where you're like, okay, who are you going to get who's going to do a better job than this guy did? Now that was before he won a national title. He's the one who is the architect of this program. I mean, he's done a really good job hiring a really good staff, but I think, you asked me about like, what's the takeaway from this? You can wag the finger at people who don't have perspective and all, but look at, that's kind of the society we're in right now. It's a really toxic place in a lot of places in, online. And I think that stuff is unfortunately it's out there, and I think my takeaway was something Nina Day told me the other night, which is like, you get knocked down, people fail. The most important thing is you got to get back up and you got to fight. And I think that is a great lesson. I mean, again, to their credit is you don't have to be an Ohio State fan, I think, to buy into this part. I mean, Ryan Day's been really proactive and vocal about talking about mental health issues because of what he has been through from a time he was really young. And I think those are important issues for him with his platform to use. And hopefully that stuff will now, when you become a national championship coach, when you become a Super Bowl winning, whatever it is, your platform grows so much more significantly. Obviously he had a platform because he was a head coach at Ohio State, but just when you have those credentials onto it. I mean, as a quick aside, I remember Mike Leach's book, we were working on it, and he had his agent has also represented Tom Coughlin. And Tom Coughlin won Super Bowls with the Giants. And I remember thinking, well, I mean, he's obviously a terrific coach, but like nowhere as interesting as Leach was. But then the idea is, well, when you win a Super Bowl, you have the magnitude behind you. It doesn't matter, beyond that. And I, again, you say that to get to this is like, I think for Ryan Day's position now there's only a couple other guys who are still in college football who coaching now, active, who have won national titles. Yeah,
with Harbaugh and across the
Mac
street.
Brown's gone, Saban's gone.
On the TV
set, they're not working. It's basically Kirby Smart, Dabo, and now him. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling that few of the guys, the last guys who won, are all out of the business. Mac Brown, who won a long time ago, Ed Ogeron, who won it at LSU. Obviously, Saban won a bunch of them. I mean, those guys aren't there anymore. Obviously, Harbaugh's in the NFL, but now Ryan Day joins a very, very small fraternity.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.